morning, kids. Welcome to another Mike Talk. It's Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you guys. Halfway through the week, I'm working on a sermon. Excited to share that with you on Sunday. Hey, Sunday at our special event and online, we took up a special offering of $5,366 for the ministry of Song and Sword. And as we said, we're going to tithe that. The local mission is Home Sweet Home, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But we took a check for $536 to them yesterday, and I'll fill you in on about what that was. Just want to let you guys know, celebrate that. God continues to grow our ministry. You can sign up for another event at songandsword.com for June 25th. Hope to see you there. You can get some Song and Sword t-shirts and swag. That's on the website, songandsword.com. You can take us with you on the road. And Spotify. We got that thing going for you young kids who are cool. All right? I'm rushing this morning because I got a lot to say. I'm going to run through several passages in Matthew, the book of Matthew, on this one word, the word authority. In the Greek language, the word exousin has to do with power, it has to do with will, it has to do with privilege and control. That's what authority means. The one who's in charge. Who's in charge? Who's in charge in your life? And who's in charge ultimately? And so I'm going to look at that word in the book of Matthew today. Matthew chapter 7, verse 29, the end of the Sermon on the Mount. Here's what the people say. Now, I'll go back up to verse 28. When Jesus finished these sayings, the crowds were astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one who had authority and not as their scribes. In other words, they listened to Jesus' teaching, they're going, he doesn't sound like the rabbis. Most of the rabbis are saying, Rabbi Gamaliel said this, Rabbi Hillel said this, Rabbi Shammai, those are famous teachers in the first century. Rabbi thinks this, Rabbi thinks this, the rabbis are divided on this. Jesus just stood up and talked and said, this is the way it is, this is the kingdom of heaven. Let me explain God to you. And he wasn't acting as if he was guessing. He was speaking with authority. It was noticeable. Jesus speaks with authority. Then write down the page in my Bible to chapter 8 of Matthew. A centurion comes to him in Capernaum. His servant is sick. And Jesus says, I'll come heal him. He goes, you don't need to heal him. I understand authority. Verse 9, for I too am a man under authority with soldiers under me. I say to one, go, and he goes. He goes, Jesus, you don't need to come to my house. Just say the word. You're in charge of the illness of my servant. And then in chapter 9, Jesus is healing a paralyzed man, the one that's let down through the roof, And he says to the guy who's dropped down in front of him, he says, your sins are forgiven. And the Pharisees are like, who in the world can forgive sins? And Jesus says in verse 8, chapter 9, verse 8 of 6 of Matthew, 9:6 of Matthew, that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. Jesus has authority to teach. He teaches with authority. Jesus has authority to say the word and heal a centurion's servant. Jesus has authority to forgive sins. In chapter 10, verse 1, he says to his apostles, I'm going to give you authority. He called to him his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out, to heal every disease and every affliction. So Jesus has the authority, but he shares it with those who follow him. Now, what do people who get authority sometimes do? Well, it kind of goes to their head. So in Matthew chapter 20, you can hear me flipping the pages of my Bible here. In Matthew chapter 20, James and John come to Jesus, their mother, on his behalf and say, I want my boys to be 1 and 2 in your kingdom. I want them to have more authority. And Jesus says in Matthew 20:25, he called his disciples to him and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them, but not so with you. You have authority. I'm giving you authority. Jesus has all authority, but it shouldn't go to your head. You lead with humility. One who wants to be great becomes small, even though they have the authority of God. I'm going to skip over the one in Matthew chapter 21, verse 23. That's a debate where they're trying to ask Jesus, by what authority are you doing all this stuff? And he gets into this back and forth about the authority of John the Baptist, and he basically wins the debate, but he doesn't tell them. But then, astoundingly, in Matthew 28, verse 19, what we call the Great Commission, his first words before he says, go and baptize and teach, he says, all authority on heaven and earth has been given to me, because I have conquered everything. My death, burial, and resurrection, I've conquered everything there is. There's nothing. The Father has given me all authority. What am I trying to say today? Today, you have authority figures in your life. Moms and dads, brothers and sisters, bosses, co-workers that maybe have a higher ranking than you in the office. You'll have teammates, maybe coaches. There's a lot of teachers, a lot of places, a lot of authority figures in our life. But I wanted you to understand today, no matter who's in charge, Jesus is in charge. His word is authoritative. His healing is authoritative. He has given us authority to live lives that are victorious over unclean spirits. His forgiveness is authoritative. And now he says, in this authority, go into the world. You might have a lot of bosses today, but there's only one boss. His name is Jesus. God bless you guys. Happy Wednesday.